3, 2, and 1. Dun, dun,
Hello.
dun, dun. We are
Welcome,
live.
everybody.
Beat the banks. I see no chatter going on.
Live
Hopefully live. Beat the
at
banks.
1 p.m. Eastern time on a Friday afternoon. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Let me double check and make sure we are live.
I see us. I got us on the other screen. Yep.
Okay. Let's get some comments. Where's everybody coming from? We know we love to see that on all of our regular Beat the Banks live streams. Let us know where you're calling from if you're up to it.
I think
I
we
did say
can
1
jump.
p.m. I say 1 p.m. Eastern, right?
Yeah, it is 1 p.m. Eastern. Correct.
I just want to make sure that I have the correct.
Probably should have announced on the Friday call, but it's all right. We can just jump into the news and people can watch the
There
recording.
We go. There's Sam.
Sam's
cool.
here.
We are truly live. All right, here we go. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Welcome to Beat the Banks Live. I am Chris. This is Jangle. We represent yieldfarming.com, the educational brand of DeFi education for Truffle Ventures. It's our pleasure to be coming to you today, talking about a variety of different things in the DeFi space. We'll answer your questions live, and we'll deep dive into something most likely. But we'll start with the news. So, news, Mr. Jangle. Let me get my screen here to the correct. Let's see. My apologies. I normally have this already queued up. Okay, so DeFi news. We'll start with the Binance Smart Chain BNB smash and grab 560 million. This happened yesterday. Kind of big news. Kind of came out of nowhere. They actually halted the entire Binance Smart Chain. I want to say for 6 hours. Made it so that nobody can make any transactions to try and stop this guy from making away with too much. So looking at the this thread from Sam, who is a white hat for not necessarily for Binance, but specifically for interesting. Zach XBT sent Sam the attacker's address out of the blue. Yeah. So basically, you can read this thread, kind of get an idea for what you think it could be. Basically, they impersonated a relayer on the bridge to get access to some funds, ran off with it, and then pretty much just went on a gallivanting spree. They also ended up doing with the money going on Ethereum mainnet and launching.
Chris, your mic is popping. It's popping.
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's what I thought. Okay, good. That's just
you can fix that for 30 seconds or so. I can kind of break down what I know about this. But yeah, basically it seems to be a pretty sophisticated bridge hack, totaling somewhere between 500 and 700 million in funds, which might make it the biggest or one of the top 3 biggest DeFi hacks ever. The chain was frozen. From my understanding, the hacker was able to bridge somewhere around $100 to $200 million off chain to other blockchains that, most blockchains cannot just be halted by a small number of people. But Binance Smart Chain, a fairly centralized chain, was able to kind of, fortunately in this case, halt to maybe minimize the damage. There's been some talk, well, maybe they will roll back the chain to a previous state or do something to make up for these funds. I don't think that's super likely, just because Binance is fairly well capitalized. It would be a pretty bad look for crypto. It'd be a pretty bad look for Binance if they decided to do something like roll back the chain or coordinate the fairly centralized small number of validators to make it like this hack never happened, because that is something they probably theoretically could do, but it would erode the trust in the Binance Smart Chain and in the kind of credible neutrality of the Binance Smart Chain, the censorship resistance of the Binance Smart Chain, which we kind of, if you've been around crypto for a while, I mean, that this is, hopefully this isn't news to you that Binance Smart Chain is a fairly centralized chain, but it would just be a really bad look, I think, if they did that. So some people think they might roll back the chain or take some sort of centralized action to impose their will on the chain for the good of all those affected. Some people think that they will just make everybody whole, and that would be that. It's a check that Binance can probably afford to write, and I think that's probably the more likely situation. But in the case of the former, is the action taken if the chain would be rolled back, and the hacker was able to bridge 1 to 200 million, somewhere around that order of magnitude, in that range of funds to other chains like Ethereum that are a little bit more, or not a little bit more, but are, it wouldn't be possible to roll back the chain or censor certain transactions on there. So very interesting. Sad, but impressive response time by the crypto community. And because CZ and the Binance team was able to freeze the chain, somewhat of the damage was minimized. A lot of chaos on chain. If you would like to dig into Sam's thread here, if you are somewhat technical, you might understand some of the technical details of the bridge hack. But welcome, everybody. We're a few minutes in, just getting to the news. The Binance hack, obviously the biggest story of the last 24 hours, probably the biggest story of the week. If you're watching the stream, 10 in the stream, 3 likes, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps push us out to more people. Greatly appreciate it. Chris, any thoughts on the Binance hack? Can't hear you. We've got a few other things in store. If you've got any questions, throw them in chat. I've got the chat up on another screen over here, so I'm watching your questions. If there's something you want to hear us talk about, we might do a little discussion about Uniswap V3, how to minimize impermanent loss and imagine kind of those positions in your overall portfolio. We've got a few more pieces of news to talk about, but if you've got any specific questions or want to chit chat at us, throw it in chat. Chris, welcome back.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so the interesting part about this is if Binance Smart Chain was completely decentralized, would they have had as much success as they did to stop the attacker from leaving with as much as they did by halting the chain? I know this is something that is in a lot of arenas, at least those that are pro-decentralization, this is a big no-no. I mean, obviously, we saw this with Osmosis earlier. In fact, they halted Osmosis and Solana not that long ago for very similar reasons. Although the interesting note when they first put the announcement out is that they were undergoing maintenance. They didn't quite mention an exploit yet until after Sam's tweet went out. Then obviously they started talking about it. But from a centralization standpoint, do you think that this was the right thing to do?
I mean, kind of my ethos and my opinion is kind of like as a decentralization maxi, somewhat personally. But would the hacker have been able to get access to more funds had they not frozen? I assume so, based on my technical understanding of the bridge hack. Yeah, probably. So I think that CZ and the Binance team were acting in the best interest of the individuals who had exposure to, definitely the LPs on that bridge are probably the most wrecked.
Right.
And then, maybe there might have been other people affected that were just users on the chain, but I think the primary people affected were LPs on specifically that bridge. So would pausing the chain and preventing that bridge from functioning prevented more funds from being attacked? Probably so. But then if you go to the philosophical argument, is that an argument for centralization? Well, we kind of already have that, right? Like if you are the victim of, identity theft or, credit card fraud or something like that, financial institutions with intermediaries, they can roll back transactions, right? If somebody steals my credit card and charges things to it, I can contact the intermediary. They can roll back the transaction. They can freeze the card, right? So we kind of already have these solutions where, okay, if you're not, technically sophisticated, well, there's tons of reasons why people use TradFi because it's the predominant way to pay for things and do commerce as of now. But we already have that solution, right? Okay, we'll just push the responsibility of custody of the assets, push the responsibility for the ability to roll back the chain, roll back the transactions, roll back the state of the ledger, which is essentially what your bank account would do if somebody, fraudulently wired funds to another bank account, coordinate with that other bank, just update both of your ledgers again. That solution's already there. So I don't think it's an argument against decentralization because they were able to freeze the chain to impose their will on the state of the network. I don't think that's an overall argument for centralization. And I think other distributed blockchains that have kind of more widely distributed validator networks, maybe under certain circumstances, it would be beneficial to a small number of parties to be able to roll back the chain. For example, if you sign a malicious transaction and you get your wallet drained, obviously you'd wish that all the Ethereum validators would roll back that transaction. But Ethereum is it aspires to not have that power in the hands of any like coordinated group of people. So yeah, I think it's fine they did it because they have the ability, but I'm personally more interested in the technology stacks where that ability is not there.
Right. So, I mean, obviously you have the fact that they own all their validators is one thing, something to know if you are a DeFi advocate.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not news to you. Hopefully you didn't learn that today.
And maybe that is news to some people. People should know that Binance owns all the validators, meaning all of the nodes on their network that validate transactions. When you first try to settle and confirm your swaps, trades, or liquidity moves. Binance owns all those validators. So they were easily able to shut down the network because of that. In the event that this was any other blockchain with hundreds of validator nodes, thousands in some cases, spread all over the case, maybe not as easy to do so. There's been a lot of conversation on crypto Twitter specifically about, how safe is crypto really if something like this can happen? Is Ethereum and its rollups really the only real game in town? What were some of the things I've heard? Alt L1s are a joke because of things like this. You could certainly make a lot of arguments.
A case by case basis. I agree. You can make any sweeping generalizations like that.
I agree. Yeah, that's a really bad take in my personal opinion because there's a lot of real good work going on out there. There are just some and this guy. Let's make no mistake here. This dude is based. This guy this guy knew exactly what he was doing. And, obviously did all the nefarious things on the backside, rugging 2 or 3 tokens on his way out.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
That was wild.
What was it called? Binance
BNB Hacker Inu.
Hacker Inu.
Yeah, that was the first one. And then there's another one also called Hacked or something like that. But yeah, able to get those to jump, gain I think with like an extra 60 ETH or something like that, something nuts. So yeah, that was a real gangster move by him. Either way, be careful out there. It's really simple. Obviously, this puts bridges into question again. I think there will be a solution out there. There are ways to move money between blockchains that are not as, I don't want to say easily hackable, because of course will obviously be proved wrong very quickly.
Yeah, it's a very technical and complex topic, cross-chain security and bridge security models. But generally speaking, anytime you are holding an asset or you have exposure to an asset that is not on the same chain where that asset originates, you are carrying smart contract risk. It is a smart contract on the origination chain. It is a smart contract on the destination chain. And just like any smart contract, there can be a vulnerability that nobody has discovered yet. And if it's discovered by a bad actor first, it can be exploited. And that's the case with any smart contract. But like any smart contract, if it's been around for a long time, if it is if new code is not being pushed to it regularly and haphazardly, then you can minimize that risk. So it's why if I'm going to hold non-native assets, first of all, I don't personally, not a large percentage of my portfolio is in kind of non-native assets, and I want to mitigate that risk. And of the off-chain or cross-chain assets that I hold, they're going to be personally on chains that are secured by bridges where they are more lindy, and it's a lower risk. I'm not bridging to every chain under the sun. I'm not LPing for cross-chain bridges at the moment. I think that's kind of risky. We saw the LPs for cross-chain bridge here, the main kind of losers here. Hopefully they do get reimbursed by Binance, but yeah, I mean, right now, if I'm going to operate anywhere, it's going to be on either Ethereum mainnet, Polygon, or Arbitrum. That's me personally. I know people have higher risk tolerances with other, maybe smaller percentages of their bags. But just like when you are in a farm or a project, if you are in any smart contract, there's smart contract risk, and if you are holding a non-native asset, on another chain, there's bridge risk. So just always, I'm sure if you're around these days, you don't need a reminder. It's kind of it's something that's been fairly common for the last year or two. It seems to be increasing.
Agreed. And so, going along that tone, if this is your first time joining us, please join our free community that's here down on the bottom, Beat the Banks, at beatthebanks.circle.so. We do have multiple free trainings in our free training space that you can certainly look at and get some foundation that we've already taught, and we've been running these since the beginning of the year, to learn more about how to be safe and secure in DeFi with your crypto investing and the proper allocations you need to create. Because one thing we also preach is having allocations, having buckets, never having more than 30% in any one blockchain, just to help shield yourself so that if something like this happens, your entire stack does not go away. You can rebuild. Many of us got hit by multiple different things over this past year. So, and we're recovering, we're still stacking, we're still here. DeFi is not dead. So don't let anyone fool you differently. So just be careful out there while you're out there. It could be worse. You could be in TradFi and talking about Credit Suisse.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't think I've ever been wrecked by. I've never been rugged. I've never been in an exploit and like of a farm or a smart contract exploit or a bridge hack. But then I remembered I did lose some soul in the wormhole bridge hack. It just got reimbursed.
Wow.
So I got made whole, right? So
good for you.
Yeah, but I did. I was kind of caught up in the wormhole bridge hack.
Salute to Jump Capital then.
Yeah, thanks, Jump. Appreciate you.
So Credit Suisse is paying down its debt to calm investors after its stock went tanking after rumors of an impending collapse. Deutsche Bank also in the conversation, also having liquidity issues, possibly UBS, RBS or UBS. Might be UBS. Either way. There are some big things happening in TradFi that you need to be kind of aware of, because all of these things, they do ripple down the line, and not necessarily in a straight linear effect, but they can, because in crypto, one thing you'll learn is that investor sentiment can really be the one X factor you can't account for when it comes to how projects survive. But essentially, I just wanted to bring this news up for anybody who has been following this. It looks like they're going to be selling a hotel. Didn't even know that they owned hotel.
DGen Mansion, perhaps.
A DGen Mansion. Yep.
Distressed probably, assets. I like the sound of that.
Yep. It is it's a Bitcoin. It's a failed Ethereum mining warehouse. I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be funny if that actually was what the case was, an empty hotel that they were putting up with ETH miners?
They're just all mining ETH W. Crying.
That's crazy. There's always more to the story, right? But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as an interesting side story in connection to regarding, life in DeFi versus life in TradFi. Kind of blurring the middle, which is interesting. Well, I wanted to bring this up to you.
Well, I don't think you can really call BSC DeFi. I like to be a little bit more stingy with those words.
Fair enough. They've been around forever.
DeFi. Fake DeFi.
Okay.
DeFi.
FeFi. FOFi? FAUX-Fi?
All right.
All right. Centralized DeFi for you, CDFi.
Yeah.
So Celsius, speaking of centralized, for many of you who may be following the story, Celsius was a very large centralized exchange. They had to declare bankruptcy.
It was not a bank. It was your favorite bank, not a bank.
Correct.
Gosh. All right. Yeah, you can keep going. I am just so perturbed by this.
If you happen to be a customer of Celsius, make sure
sorry.
that you're sorry, first of all. They published
got some bad news for you.
You've been doxxed.
You've been doxxed.
Basically,
you have been
the news. I don't know what you can do there might be, let me put a link to the tweet here. There might be someone in the thread inside there that may be able to help you out in terms of maybe redacting your name, but you probably will get scammed more than anything, to be quite honest. So please be very careful.
The damage is done.
Yeah, the damage is done. This is not good because they have given information. For example, this is Alex Mashinsky, who's the former CEO who stepped down last week, shows the exact information of everything he's done on the chain. And again, this is probably regulatory information they had to give.
Well, there's actually it's like the Bank Privacy Act. There's a law, your bank is not supposed to give, there are federal laws in the US at least regarding privacy around financial activity, and financial intermediaries and institutions are not just supposed to blast all of their customers and their transaction history out on the internet for everybody to see. But Celsius, for whatever reason, is not under, they never had a banking charter, I don't believe. And so they're not actually a bank, even though they're like a centralized custodian of funds. So those laws don't apply to them. And so in the court filing, there's just everybody. It's just everybody and their activity and their names. At least your addresses are redacted, but your name's on there and the transactions are on there and the transaction amounts are on there and like the date. So you can find anybody's, with a little bit of on-chain analysis, you can basically figure out pretty much everybody's address, link it back to. So privacy is dead. This is another reason why I think it's really important that kind of on the roadmap for a lot of these layer one blockchains and on the the EVM roadmap, as we explore scaling solutions, we find privacy solutions, because now your on-chain activity is now doxed if you're on here. And the other kind of key bit, so not only did Celsius literally dox everybody and their balances and their transactions, but they doxed Mashinsky as well. And turns out right before the withdrawal pause, he withdrew $10 million.
$10 million.
The bastard. That's crazy.
It's like he knew something was going on.
And I remember giving a Beat the Banks lecture. I'm sure some of you all in chat were there. Give a 1 in chat if you were there in the lecture. Maybe nobody remembers, but the week before Celsius paused withdrawals, I was examining their on-chain holdings and their wallets, and I was saying, listen, they have a lot locked up in ST ETH. They are kind of levered here with illiquid assets. If everybody goes to remove, they're not going to be able to give everybody their money back. And I, say that I stoked a bank run, but Mashinsky was on podcasts. I remember he was on kind of Invest Answers. I remember he was on that channel literally like 2 days before saying everything is fine. There was that tweet, never has anybody not been able to withdraw from Celsius. I mean, blatantly talking out of one orifice and acting out of another. And yeah, it's rough. It's really, really kind of disgusting to see that he was telling everybody their funds are safe, that they'll be able to withdraw while he was getting his funds out of the sinking ship. And then not only did we discover that, but this docs literally all the customers. So, wow.
It's not a good look, man.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And like, it's it's criminal. It's rough. So
this is an interesting point right here. You know, customers by the specific definition, customers were lending money to Celsius, not depositing it. So they are creditors who must be listed in the filing. Ooh, that's something to think about moving forward.
So that's the law, the Bank Secrecy Act, not the Bank Privacy Act. The Bank Secrecy Act, because they're not a bank, you know, they're whatever, you know, they're CFI, whatever they are. Really rough. Hate to see it. Definitely a sad moment for the industry. If you are on there and it's any significant funds that you moved from Celsius to your address, or, you know, I would look for yourself on there, figure out what's on there. And if there are any addresses that you want to remain kind of private on, you know, maybe retire those addresses, move funds to a centralized exchange. So if you're in the US, it is illegal for you to use Tornado Cash. This would be a wonderful example of when Tornado Cash would have a perfectly legitimate use. But if you are not allowed to use Tornado Cash, you don't want to commit a felony, then you can always use a centralized exchange in order to kind of wash your funds, right? So if you withdraw to a centralized exchange and then you withdraw from that centralized exchange to a new wallet, then people tracking you on chain won't be able to see your activity. They will just see it going into Celsius, or rather into Coinbase or FTX or Binance. And they have big wallets, have lots of holdings, so you can regain some of your privacy. But yeah, hopefully you weren't moving around significant funds to and from Celsius because your docs. So I'm sure that this unfortunately will, you know, pose a safety concern. It's funny, just the other day we were talking about, you know, safety and physical security of seed phrases, and you know, hopefully nothing scary comes of this.
Agreed. Well, let's go ahead and take a second to talk about, before we move on, talk about adding us on Twitter. We'll talk about the mothership. As you all know, we represent Truffle Ventures, a very fantastic way to start investing your money in early seed crypto ventures. If you're an accredited investor, feel free to reach out, and we will have you connected with someone who will be able to tell you more about Truffle Ventures.
Yeah, so we do education and research, but a big part of what we do is building relationships with founders and finding really early stage projects. Now, in these market conditions, a lot of valuations are starting to really materially come down for a lot of projects. We've been in this bear for down only mode for like a year or more. So projects need funding. And if you have, you know, cash, then you're kind of in a strong position. So what we do is folks like myself, as well as, you know, we have other analysts you can see on our website. You know, we filter a lot of these deals and kind of wade through all of the crypto projects and try to find the ones that have a good product market fit, lots of upside, and really bargain valuations, and fund through SPVs and special purpose vehicles to get retail investors who are accredited exposure to early stage crypto projects. So a lot of opportunities there, especially in this extended bear market, as projects need cash and valuations, like I said, have come down quite significantly compared to 2021.
Went ahead and put a link to our marketing video in the chat. We are capped at 400 users, so join now. If you're an accredited investor or you represent someone who's an accredited investor, book a call, see if it's something for you. We thank Truffle Ventures for, you know, being a part of our life. It's a terrible read. I apologize. Moving on. Interesting news. We talked about probably not on this show. We've talked about previously on some of our other shows that that we have for our members, that Binance and MasterCard are teaming up to have a crypto card. Now Visa and FTX have a card together, are going to be having a card together. I think that's really interesting news, actually. Oh, oops, not you two. And essentially, it gives you access to spend your hard-earned crypto cash to make purchases out in the real world, not in the metaverse, in the real world, using this for funds. What's great about that is Visa and MasterCard overall are accepted in practically every country in the world. So ultimately, this will hopefully lead to a new economy where your crypto funds are going to be your home base for what you use to pay down any goods and services. There's already programs out there like Sprite, for example, is a bill pay system that uses crypto funds to pay your regular bills. I don't think they use everything, but I think for most major utilities and in big cities and stuff like that, that's something you can do. You can buy anything with crypto. In fact, I'm trying to remember the name of the service that lets you buy a house using crypto funds. It's an American service. It's a realty service based out of Miami, I believe, that I don't quite remember. But
yeah, it's interesting stuff. I mean, I keep seeing headlines like this. I'm not sure which ones are really, making a material difference and which ones are kind of, I swear I've seen this headline 1,000 times. But yeah, just kind of moving the whole industry forward in crypto payments is if I can get less friction between kind of USDC on chain and paying for stuff that I need, that would be cool. Trying to go as bankless as possible, as the folks over there would say. So yeah, it's good stuff. Kind of another reason to highlight privacy as a necessity on chain. So if we can get some privacy oriented ZK rollup solutions online, that would be sweet. I know Binance is partnered with, I think it was MasterCard in for a debit card in Argentina that could convert crypto to local fiat, which I'm sure for those who are aware of it, there would be a major help. Is there kind of, I don't know what their annualized inflation rate is these days.
Right there, 83%.
83%. Yeah.
78%. 78%.
Yeah. So obviously, wow, that's like almost as bad as ETH is down, and it's like a guaranteed loss. So if you can hold, like, what are the odds of Bitcoin and ETH drop another 78%? I don't know. Probably not high. So well, now I've jinxed it, but yeah, even if you could hold USDC in a centralized exchange or USDC on chain, spend a card, and then convert that automatically into the local fiat that you need. It could be a big help for people. So the more we can get that online for the folks who really need it, the better.
And this isn't a new idea, obviously. I mean, I have a crypto.com card here. I have a Coinbase Visa. These are all things that are already out there that use specific crypto funds. But to be able to do it in this way, for more, I guess just for what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to pay for merchants that don't accept some of these other services is going to be key. And I think will just lead to more decoupling at some point, hopefully, between fiat and cryptocurrency. One thing I will say is that as we onboarded people for Truffle, is the amount of people I've talked to that are just looking to take their hard-earned money, and they're from Argentina, they're from Venezuela, or they're from Southeast Asia, some of these countries where their money is just dying on the vine, and escaping that by getting money into real assets that are censorship resistant, don't get hit too hard with inflation is such a key thing. So I think this is great. I'm excited to see specifically, and this is where possibly the Libra Foundation just will never get there, the ability for people to send money from one person to another without having to worry about wires and weird intermediaries and stuff like that. This is truly a step in the right direction for a much more connected world without dealing with the banks. And we talk about beating the banks all the time. right?
Yeah, just being able to live your life without having to hold an asset that is where your central bank is just going to be stealing money from you, like systemically, um, printing the currency. So being able to like actually go to the store and pay bills without having to participate in that racket is going to be like literally life changing for a significant portion of the human population, a very significant percentage of the human population, and yeah, if we can accelerate that, that'd be great. But like I said, I think there's a lot of privacy infrastructure that needs to be built before this can be fully non-custodial. Because right now, I'm thinking a lot of these, um, cards in order to work, you have to have funds in a custodial centralized exchange account, which is kind of good for privacy because they are, unless it's Celsius, they're probably not going to dox all your transaction history. But you know what? They actually probably could. So I'll take that back because of everything that's happened with Celsius. So just keep in mind that there aren't the same regulatory frameworks in place for the centralized crypto companies as there are for banks, and that have kind of the legal obligation to not just spread your data all around the internet. And hopefully we can get those privacy solutions built out on chain so that these sort of payment processing things can be done on chain, where you don't have to give up self custody of your funds, and we can have kind of privacy baked into it. Once we get to that point, that'd be really, really great.
Exactly. Look out for, there's a bunch of payment processors or just payment protocols on Cosmos that are looking to try and solve that on-ramping and off-ramping solution to be able to access your funds using a debit card like a Visa. So look out for that in the near future. In the next 3 to 6 months, they should be coming online with stuff like that. That'll be available in DeFi. So yeah, excited to see where that goes. So right now, if you have a question, we're going to answer your questions live for the next 20 minutes or so before we go into our deep dive on concentrated liquidity and Uniswap V3. So line up your questions if you got them. Put them here in the comments. Adrian, I don't think you jinxed Terra. I think there are many other forces.
I think Terra jinxed itself.
I think Terra definitely jinxed itself. I read something on Twitter yesterday that just, had they not made that one move to try and go to mainnet, where would they be right now?
I mean, we've had a lot of austerity, a long period of austerity, a lot of rate hikes, a lot of liquidity tide going out. I think that yes, it was a particularly vulnerable moment when they were migrating to the 4 pool, but there was a lot of nonsense in the 2021, 2020 bull market, and it was easy to keep faith in UST when the money was flowing everywhere. But and I remember in the May 2021 crash when UST was much lower market cap and depegged down to like the mid 80 something cents. And I thought it was doomed then. And Luna was maybe like $12 or something. And it got down to, it was down 70%. And it recovered, but then the bull market kind of continued for that double top at towards the end of 2021, and at a certain point you can't have an asset that commands tens of billions of dollars in market cap based off of faith alone, unless maybe it's like a fiat currency or something. I don't know. But like at the end of the day, UST doesn't have like a nation behind it. Like it doesn't have like a whole national economy behind it. Doesn't have like a military behind it. So what was gonna enforce the peg? Obviously the peg mechanism was reflexive to the upside and reflexive to the downside. And so I think that eventually it was going to bust. There's just no way around it.
Or they could have come up with something. I don't know. Do Kwon being Do Kwon. Hard to say.
Yeah, but like, we'll come up with something like Doquan will be Doquan. Like that doesn't justify a $50 billion market cap.
No,
No, that's not real. That's not real. That's not a hard asset. That
BizDev was on point though. You gotta give it to him. 5-year with the Washington Nationals. Variety. What else they had going on with professional sports and
I think they had a lot of stuff in Korea as well. I think.
Yeah.
Like buy diapers or I don't know,
something like that.
Partnerships like that.
I mean, it was big enough that they put out an Interpol alert for Doquan from South Korea. I'm like, you guys really must have really angered somebody in South Korea to get that going. So
yeah, I'm sure it angered a whole lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people got wrecked. So. Sad things.
Yes, sir. Well, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. We'll answer anything that you got to the best of our ability. If any questions on yield farming, any questions on anything with crypto investing, NFTs. If you're following NFTs, we're pretty big in the AVAX NFT space right now. Peons just had a huge pickaxe mint. Hopefully you all got into it. It sold out to the public in less than 30 seconds if you didn't have whitelist. So yeah. Also, feel free to go to Beat the Banks and also check out our previous, or here on our YouTube channel, check out our previous live streams where we talk more about some other ways to help build your portfolio, get alpha, get good at optimizing your routines and things like that. These are all things that we fully believe in and will keep you specifically stacking in a market like this. Because one thing we always say is confusion equals money. Most people will look at what we're doing here in DeFi and say, that's way too confusing. Why would I put all that time and effort into this? It's because that's kind of the hope, I guess, because that allows us to, for anyone who knows how to work through it, and that's been our specialty, is to help you make money. And we're doing fantastically, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure that if y'all are here, I mean, we are, like I said, we're like a year into down only, so I think that most people here are in it for the tech, right?
Yeah, the tech, exactly.
I think most people here are in it for the tech, or at least you are. You're not just these aren't the moon boys, right? No, there aren't very many moon boys left. I think most people here. Yeah, DeFi can be kind of confusing if you don't have a tech background, but yeah, if you're around now, you've figured a lot of stuff out. So congratulations for being here.
Where's our Cardano fans? Where's our XRP Ripple fans?
Why?
Where's our Soul Stellar Lumens acolyte? There's a
Ultimate trade's over, Chris. The Ultimate trade's over.
I'm just saying the amount after this BNB thing. The amount of Bitcoin maxis and the amount of ADA maxis that have come out of the woodwork is staggering, and it just kind of makes me laugh. But we'll see.
I don't think obviously Bitcoin maxis and ADA maxis in the same bucket. They're not. But it's interesting to see just the people that were like talking about these Twitter threads we've been talking about today. It's been kind of nuts. So anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to the next piece of the presentation today. We're going to talk a little bit about concentrated liquidity and Uniswap V3. And for those of you who are unaware of what that means, we're talking about yield farm. I guess you could call it yield farming. What we're talking about is we're swap fee farming using two assets on Uniswap, which is one of the largest decentralized exchanges available on Ethereum mainnet, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon. Those are the 4 chains you can find it on, and I guess Celo technically at this point. And basically, what you're doing is you're trying to guess and present. It's market making. It's market making.
You're market making. But if you're to ELI 5, what's the easiest way? Like if someone says you're market making, I was like, I don't even know what that means. Ultimately, you are you're presenting liquidity within a price range, saying that the price of my assets and together in what we call a price curve is between these bounds. And most people will choose an asset and a stable coin to make math easy.
I think you can get way simpler than that, right?
Okay, go ahead.
People want to trade. They want to swap one asset for the other asset. How do they do that? On a centralized exchange, or for if it's stocks, a brokerage account, they are relying on an intermediary with an order book, right? A centralized exchange like Coinbase, FTX, Binance has an order book, and they're matching buyers and sellers together. If you're selling, somebody else is buying. If you're buying, somebody else is selling. That's not how it works on chain. Most of y'all here probably know that much. You need liquidity in order to swap. So you are providing liquidity. That's all you're doing. You're a liquidity provider. You're saying, hey, basically within this price range, I will take the other side of your trade and you pay me a fee, and that's it. So I wouldn't call this too much of a deep dive, but I guess I can kind of go into how I use Uniswap within my portfolio. And first and foremost, I want to say that most Uniswap LPs lose money due to impermanent loss. And if you don't know what impermanent loss is and you don't know really the basics of Uniswap V3, then I suggest Guillaume Lambert's Medium page and his Twitter account that I'll throw here in chat. I think he does a really great job. Adrian, yeah, V3 positions are more actively managed than traditional liquidity positions. The reason why that is because traditional market making positions, whether that be Uniswap V2 or something like Curve or even something like Balancer, with the most kind of in that order of most common, Uniswap V2 probably being or type dexes like QuickSwap, Trader Joe, those have V2 style dexes. And then, Curve, obviously another really big game in town. And then Balancer only on mainnet, a little bit smaller and different swapping algorithms. But all those other AMM type algorithms, they are less active because they're covering the price ranges from like 0 to infinity, right? The ratio between asset A and asset B, your liquidity position will stay active through any price ratio, through any price discovery, or wherever the price moves, your position will stay active. In Uniswap V3, it's something called concentrated liquidity providing, where you're specifically providing liquidity between certain price ranges. Now, why would you want to do that? One, it's more capital efficient for LPs, meaning that instead of your liquidity being spread out across a really, really wide range of prices, really all the prices, it's concentrated specifically in what's called ticks. Now, I'm not going to get into the specific math of Uniswap V3 and how, it works on a tick level, but basically think about it like you're concentrating your liquidity providing within a certain range of assets. So this magnifies your capital efficiency, but it also magnifies your impermanent loss. And if you don't know what impermanent loss is, Uniswap V3 will teach you what impermanent loss is very, very quickly. So please tread carefully with small amounts when you're first learning, because the impermanent loss can be very brutal, especially if you take that concentrated range and you make it very narrow. This is going to increase your swap fees, increase your yield, but it's going to drastically magnify your impermanent loss. So it's something you should be aware of. And it's the reason why I only have a small percentage of my overall DeFi portfolio engaged in these market making strategies. Now, what would be a situation where you could take advantage of impermanent loss? A lot of people set really tight ranges, and then when their liquidity goes out of range, meaning the price gets to a point that it's either above or below their range, well, you stop earning fees. You stop earning fees when you are out of range. And so, a lot of people who want to get really high yields, they'll set narrow ranges. And then when the price goes out of range, they have to swap one asset for the other and then readjust their range. And that's actually an incredibly dangerous thing to do, because you are locking in. The way I like to compartmentalize it in my brain is you're essentially locking in your impermanent loss at that rate. So if it's, let's say, ETH USDC LP, and you're doing it from, let's say, 1300 to 1400, and we go to 1400, you're going to be sitting in entirely USDC position, and then you're going to have to buy ETH, and if you want to go 1350 to 1450, but then if ETH goes back down to 1300, you're out of range again. So you're kind of constantly going to be bag holding the underperforming asset, buying tops, selling bottoms of those two assets price ratio. So it's an incredibly dangerous thing to be swapping back and forth, trying to stay in range and constantly locking in that impermanent loss. So that is not at all what I do. I use Uniswap V3 really for, two different purposes. And, one is, well, if we're in a verifiable downtrend right now. I don't know if this is the exact bottom. I'm not really trying to bottom tick, but I think that there is opportunity in market making. And if we do drop, I don't mind accumulating more ETH at lower prices. So what am I currently doing right now? I have a V3 position, one primary position I'll talk about. I've got a few, but a primary position I'll talk about is one from the price rates ETH USDC from 750 to about 1550. And that's yielding around like 25%. And so that's not, excuse me, stealth mute right there. That's not a crazy yield for DeFi, but I think the 25% on a position where you can potentially accumulate ETH at low prices, I mean, it sounds fine to me. I'm not too greedy in this period of austerity. So if I have position down to 750 and up to 1550 right now, if I were to enter, we're like 80% USDC and like 20% ETH. So if I want to DCA, if I want to put $1,000 into this position, I'm going to buy $200 worth of ETH. I'm going to have $800 worth of USDC, and I'm going to put it in that position. It's going to start earning 25%, right? If the price drops to 1,000, that is going to accumulate more and more ETH as the price goes down and at cheaper prices while accumulating swap fees. So that means that I'm essentially going to be buying the dip, right? And if the price goes back up, I'm going to accumulate more swap fees on the way up. And if it goes out of range to the upside, I'll be in 100% USDC, meaning I'll be kind of automatically taking profits on my ETH. Now, if ETH rockets, well, then that would be pretty sad. I might have done better just holding that original, $200 worth of ETH. But I've got ETH elsewhere in my portfolio. This is just kind of a segmented part of my portfolio, and I'm okay picking up that cash. So that's fine by me. If ETH drops like a rock down to 750 or even below 600, yeah, I might have done better if I had set a limit order at 600. But I've been collecting fees all along the way, and I'm accumulating more cheap ETH anyway. At that point, I could pull out some of that ETH and increase my HODL bags at lower prices. So that's kind of how I compartmentalize ETH, USDC, V3 positions. And it's something that I think is one of the few opportunities. If you just have some stables, you want to buy the dip and potentially do some market making and get some decent yields. So Adrian says in chat, to determine the price range for V3, it would be useful to know technical analysis to predict approximate price range. That's absolutely true. So if you can identify kind of key levels of support that you think will hold, then you might not want to bring your range too far below that, because again, the more narrow your range is, the higher capital efficiency, the higher yield you're going to get on that position. And same to the upside, if you identify a key level of resistance that you think we're unlikely to go above, well, then you wouldn't want to set your range any higher than that, because it wouldn't be necessary. But I do have a position around 1250 to, I think it's like 1450 or 1415, something like that. And that's been actually it's like 1250 to 14. I think it's 1416. And so that position's actually been in range for a long time. We've been in the 1300s for a while in ETH. And personally, for me, I aim to have a position open for at least a week, right? I don't want to be actively managing these positions because it takes a lot of brain juice to constantly be moving stuff around. And once I'm out of range, I'm out of range. I'm not opening and closing positions and locking in permanent loss. I'm not chasing fees. I am using this as a strategy to either take profits on pumps or accumulate more on dumps, and just collect fees, market make as I'm doing so. So it's a way to protect my stable coins and get them productive. And then if the market does take a sizable move down, accumulate more ETH.
Now I'm showing this calculator that we've used in the past. This is from DeFi Lab. And I went ahead and put in, Jangle's range here. And again, he's had this open for roughly a month since we've been around that 1300 range. And again, there's some caveats with this, but essentially his APR for, using wrapped ETH and USDC, this is going to be on, I'm assuming this is on Polygon. Did I choose Polygon? I believe I've chosen Well, in any case, it's roughly going to be about 137%, which is honestly fantastic. You could actually load your ranges a lot wider. And so let's say that you want to stay around 1,000 to 1,600.
Yeah, let me see what I have actually, because I've been in the 0.3% pool. I am that's approximately right. Yeah, I'm at, somewhere somewhere around like 100 and 120, 130%.
Even at 48%, that's a fantastic return. And again, you're being paid because these are swap fees. The way that Uniswap V3 works is that you get your rewards. You're actually paid out in both assets. So you're going to be getting wrapped ETH and USDC in swap fees and generally equal amounts. Specifically, in this range, it's got, in a range of 1,000 to 1,600. I mean, you're still getting, 48%. If you single stake ETH right now, you're getting less than 5%, and that's on a really good day. So to be able to pair this with USDC at a fairly wide range and still get, a pretty decent yield, is promising. And it's also, it's very secure because all you're doing is grabbing swap fees off of any activity that happens on Uniswap.
Which is the largest DEX as well by quite a bit.
Didn't we see by 60% market share is what they currently have based on what's coming on here. And the idea has been around for than a year, more than 2 years almost, in terms of how they wanted to do this. And it's starting to catch up. Trader Joe is coming out with a new one for the blockchain called Liquidity Book.
A new concentrated liquidity protocol.
Correct.
A new AMM,
and they're actually going to be transforming their decentralized exchange with a new dynamic fee model to really not provide a quality of life improvement, but just a different way of looking at how liquidity is done at this level, which is going to be pretty exciting in my opinion. Because the one thing that you have to recognize here, and why we like to set wide ranges and then set small ranges to get more liquidity in smaller spots, is specifically for both the impermanent and divergent loss that you get with the supply on what you provide for your liquidity in this price range. So, but yeah, it's available on multiple blockchains outside of Uniswap. Trader Joe's coming up with theirs. Solana has 2. They have both Orca and Radium. And then Cosmos Osmosis is going to be coming out with concentrated liquidity very soon.
Yeah, so not only does it provide a pretty high capital efficiency for LPs, again, your main risk is impermanent loss. But if you compartmentalize, my whole main point I'm trying to make here is I compartmentalize this in a part of my portfolio where I'm okay with kind of variable allocations. Like I'm okay if the prices dump, accumulating some more ETH. I'm okay if the prices pump, accumulating some more stable coins, right? And you can kind of apply that logic to any 2 coins you wouldn't mind accumulating if their price ratios between each other shift up or down. So your favorite altcoin, we talk a lot about GMX and have for a long time here. I have an ETH GMX LP on Arbitrum. I've had LP positions for ETH and GMX for many months now, and they are very high yield. Even if I widen the range out a little bit, because ETH and GMX are so correlated. We've seen GMX pump, but traditionally they are fairly correlated. Especially this year and the first half of this year, they were extremely correlated. So if you can find two correlated coins that have good volume, then that's good. Also, the V3 offers some pretty capital efficient swaps as well, and that attracts more and more volume. I linked in chat just a second ago a DEX volume tracker that I use. I check in every couple of days and see which DEXs have high volume, and Uniswap is pretty much always number one. So yeah.
Awesome. So if anybody has any questions about that, I did link our free training mega post at Beat the Banks. Feel free to check that out. And again, that's at beatthebanks.circle.so. That is our free community. If you're looking to join our paid mastermind, feel free to reach out to us at yieldfarming.com, which is the DeFi education brand of Truffle Ventures. And you can certainly join us on our weekly calls for both cohort coaching as well as overall alpha and things that we'll be doing here on our YouTube channel. So join the many who have already continued to stack and do well along with us throughout this bear market. Mainly because we have this all-weather portfolio, which is something we talk about and Beat the Banks quite a bit. So feel free to check out those trainings to learn more. And we thank you for joining us on this call today. Trying to think if there's anything else that we want to cover today before we move on to anything you got left.
No, I really recommend
Twitter.
if you're going to try concentrated liquidity, start with small amounts, because the impermanent loss, it can be brutal if you are not kind of expecting it. And I recommend it on Polygon.
Yep.
If you're new to it, just because you might be trying different positions and the gas fees are really, really cheap. So Arbitrum or Polygon, maybe don't start off on ETH mainnet. Chris, could you name the other DEXs with the concentrated liquidity capabilities again for Adrian in chat?
Yeah, that's going to be on the Solana blockchain. That's going to be Orca, which is orca.so. Radium, which I think is just radium.io. That's in beta. They have very few, whereas Orca has quite a few that you can choose from. And then those are the only two that are currently out. Osmosis on the Cosmos ecosystem. They are a blockchain at osmosis.zone. They'll be coming out with theirs fairly soon. And then you have Trader Joe, the leading DEX on Avalanche. They're coming out with their liquidity book. Hopefully sometime in the next 6 weeks. It was supposed to be released last month, but they didn't quite get there. So, and I get it. They certainly want to have the best product without any real bugs. So I think it's worth mentioning. This stuff is it's fairly straightforward to understand, but it's hard to master. Ridiculously hard to master. So looks like we lost Jangle for a quick second. Oh, nope, that's the wrong screen. There he is. It's hard to master. There's a lot of people are talking about automated strategies. Most of them, frankly, don't work that well. And if there's someone who has something that does work well, it won't be cheap. You're certainly going to be paying for such
Yeah,
things.
We had a conversation about this earlier today. My opinion on trading bots is kind of the same right now, or my at least intuition is that if anybody has a profitable trading bot, they're not going to be selling it to you. They're going to be keeping it a secret and using it to make money. So generally speaking, I don't like the idea of purchasing a trading bot. I don't think it's plus EV. And I kind of have the same opinion on automated liquidity management. If somebody had a really efficient, really profitable automated concentrated liquidity management algorithm, why would they give it away and increase their competition within those ticks and those ranges? So it just doesn't make intuitive sense to me that there would be a public one or a paid one that is like available to the public. It doesn't make intuitive sense to me. So I just stick with my personal strategies where I am okay with a wide range of outcomes depending on the market conditions.
Yeah, and I would think that if you're going to start with anything, probably start with this USDC USDT pool to kind of understand more about how it works. It's a 0.01% fee tier, and you can farm it pretty easily, to my opinion. This is going to be on the Polygon blockchain. If you go back to pools under info.uniswap.org, that's where you get all these stats. One thing to remember with all these calculators as well is that their data is always rear viewing, meaning it's from data that has happened over the past 24 hours. So it won't always be the most accurate, but it'll kind of give you an idea of what you're looking for. Same thing here too. It's all about present day traffic because you're just getting swap fees in a certain range based on the two assets that you have going. So for ease of use, going with a stable coin is one of them, makes it easier. So it's easier to remember what the price that you need to stick in, you need to stick with is going to be. So a lot of people will do USDC and ETH. In this case, it is the 0.05% fee tier. And it gets a lot of TVL. That's what you're looking for too. If you create a pool, which you have the ability to do, because it is permissionless and decentralized here on Uniswap, you may not get any traffic. So you definitely want to go with the ones that have the most TVL because that's where you're gonna get the majority of your swap fees. So yeah, definitely something to check out.
Highest volume.
Highest volume. Yep, sorry.
High volume. And the liquidities, the swaps are always going to route through the best swap for the user. So if you're in a high fee tier, if you're like 1% for USDT and USDC, you're going to get no volume, or you're going to get nothing routed through that pool. Typically, very little volume compared to the 0.01%. For pairs like ETH and USDC, the 0.05% is the most popular, but 0.3% might get arbed out as the prices move. So then you're kind of taking a bet on, okay, what's going to be more, is there going to be more volatility or more volume and tight price ranges? And it can get kind of more complicated than we have time for. I'm sure if there's anybody here who's not really familiar with concentrated liquidity providing, we've already given you plenty to chew on. So I won't get into all that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a rabbit hole. But one that can be pretty profitable. Past couple of days, I've been using the GMX wrapped ETH, GMX ETH position on Arbitrum, the 1% tier, which is one of the most popular ones out there. And based on, just going with a range and then, dropping after 24 hours, I've been making roughly 2 GMX a day. And GMX is, pulling at about $45-$50 a clip. So yeah, not a bad deal. Ultimately between 150 and 400%, depending on what you're looking at. But great way, high risk, high reward. Very easy to get wrecked on both impermanent and what we also call divergent loss, based on the amount of supply that you have in the pool. So obviously be careful. Something that's not easy to stomach when you get wrecked that hard, but if you choose two assets that work pretty well together or don't move very far, the reason why I'm most excited about this coming to Osmosis is because Osmosis has, and same with Trader Joe, they do have liquid staking available. So the moment we can start doing liquid staking on here, I do believe that on at least Polygon they have Matic and Staked Matic. That would be great because you have barely any impermanent loss at all. So that would be a really great farm to go after, in my personal opinion. So, but anyway, that's all we have for you guys today. Thanks for joining us. Again, feel free to join us at beatthebanks.circle.so. We know you have a choice when it comes to learning more about DeFi, and we're glad you're sticking with us. We have a lot more content coming over the next couple of weeks. We're looking to line up some people for interviews, for Ask Me Anything about some of the best new projects, and just, I guess you could call them influencers in the space. So we love feedback. If there's any feedback you want to see, there's someone you want to see on our show, feel free to let us know. Any topics you want us to cover, again, feel free to let us know. We always act on feedback, as many of our members know. And with that said, Jangle, anything else you want to talk about today?
That's it.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Go out there and
Happy
make those
Friday.
games. Keep beating those banks. 07, we'll see you later. Maybe like an end bumper.